Hello, my name is David Lankus. I'm a professor at Syracuse University. I'd like to thank the conference organizers for allowing me to talk to you via video. Hopefully by this time they've had a chance to turn my bad English into somewhat good Italian. I'm here today to talk about the future of our communities, be those communities the places we live, we work, we study, we govern. Because I believe that the future of those communities is integral to the present and future of libraries and librarians. I think that we are a keystone profession, that as we improve, the communities that we serve can improve as well. And that the needs of our communities now and in the future are different than they were in the past. And so I want to talk about how we can rethink librarianship and libraries around this idea of becoming integral and important to that future. I start with a quote from Israel Zangwill. The past, our cradle, not our prison. There is danger as well as appeal in its glamour. The past is for inspiration, not imitation, for continuation, not repetition. I think all too often, particularly in fields like librarianship that have a 4,000-year history and tradition to look to, we feel that somehow tinkering or changing how they work in some way invalidates what happened in the past. And nothing could be farther from the truth. The reason that librarianship has endured 4,000 years, the reason that we have libraries and librarians today is because people, librarians, historians, people took that institution, took that skills and the tasks and rethought them for the new age. The reason that we have a 4,000-year history and we've survived that long is not because we haven't changed, but because we have changed radically when the profession and when the communities that we served needed that change. So I want to talk a little bit about what I think communities need from libraries today. And that isn't invalidating what we did yesterday or 10 years ago or 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. It's in the tradition of that. It's in continuing innovation, change around a central mission that has actually endured for 4,000 years. To begin with, when you talk about the future, I think we need to acknowledge that the future of libraries and librarians are different. That we've often thought of these two groups as the same, that libraries are institutions, buildings, and collections, and librarians are the people who work in them. And while we've talked about how we can train them and what degrees they have and what skills, we've often merged these two ideas. I think we're now in a world where we need to break these ideas apart, where there will still be librarians working and maintaining libraries, but we'll have librarians working in government, in business, in communities without any connection to an organization called a library. And they themselves may be doing the work of librarians without the title of library. So if we're going to talk about these futures, I want to start with talking about the future of librarians. First, we have to define what a librarian is outside of the context of the institution. We can no longer say a librarian is someone who works in a library. It doesn't help because our communities need those professions, those skills where they are in their community centers, in their businesses, in government, etc. So we need to see what is a librarian. And yes, they may work in a library, but they may not. So to try and answer this question, I wrote a book, which I believe is part of why I'm here, called The Atlas of New Librarianship. And in it, the goal was to first of all, define librarianship outside of the institutions of libraries. What is a librarian, whether they work in a building or not, whether they work with a collection or not, whether they have the title of librarian or not? What is it that defines what they do? It's all about librarianship focused on learning and knowledge, not on collection and tools. That the art and craft and skill and science of librarianship isn't simply about organizing stuff or putting things on shelves or licensing databases or even organizing things on the web. The future is in librarians facilitating people learning. The reason that we have libraries and the reason we have librarians is so that people can learn, can constantly improve and understand new things in new ways. Yes, they do that in schools and universities, but outside of those, and often inside of those contexts, librarians and libraries help people learn, become better, acquire new skills, and ultimately improve their communities and society in general. And the other part of the atlas, the other goal, was to come up with concepts that are durable, That is, instead of saying, oh, librarianship's changed because of Twitter, or librarian has changed because of Facebook or the internet, the truth is that what happened in the Library of Alexandria 4,000 years ago matters to what's happening in libraries today. And that idea that librarians were advisors to kings now are advisors to communities, and where the Library of Alexandria wasn't simply a collection of scrolls, but of scholars and of thinking and of documenting and remembering and capturing culture in real time, that needs to happen today in our libraries as well, be they academic libraries or public libraries. So what exactly did I say within that, and what exactly do I define a librarian as? So what's a librarian? Well, the first thing that defines a librarian is their mission. This is the mission that I propose that librarians as professionals have inside a library or outside of it, across different libraries in different settings and different types. The mission of a librarian is to improve society through facilitating knowledge creation in their communities. So what's our job? Our job is to improve society. How do we do it? We facilitate knowledge creation. We're in the knowledge business. We're not in the things business or the books business or the artifacts business. We're also not in the food business. We're not in the tourism business. We're in the business of knowledge. Now, there's a problem with defining librarians solely by this mission, and that is that teachers and professors and publishers and public servants can look at this and say, well, that's my mission too. And they're right, it is. This mission really does cover across lawyers and doctors and the idea of people that are about developing knowledge and improving society through how we think and what we know. So that's insufficient. We must add to that two things. The first is how we build knowledge. We facilitate knowledge creation. That is, we don't necessarily create it ourselves, but we create the fertile fields that people can come and learn and understand. We do that through access to knowledge, to documents, to other people, to the environment, to expertise. We do that through building knowledge, training, education. We do it by providing a safe intellectual and oftentimes physical environment for people to learn in, and we build on their motivation intrinsically and extrinsically. But once again, this does not uniquely define a librarian. Publishers could say they do this. Google could say they do this. Different folks can say. So it's a mission, facilitation, and lastly, and probably most importantly, the values in which we do this. That we're all about facilitating knowledge creation in a very principled environment. Those principles, those values that we bring are about learning. We're all about learning. Openness, that we do it so that you see all sides of a topic, you understand the process, you see what's happening and how that information is formatted and presented, and in the agendas of people when they provide information or expertise. We do it with a value around intellectual freedom and safety, that we believe that we can create a private environment so people can investigate topics without someone looking over their shoulder, so that they can speak unpopular ideas and study unpopular ideas in order to think of new ways to improve society. And we do it in an intellectually honest way. It's impossible, and the book goes into much greater detail, for a librarian to be unbiased, to be neutral. Simply having librarians or seeing the value of knowledge creation within community future is a bias. This idea of privacy is a bias. The idea of freedom of information, these are values we bring to them. We have a stake, we have a say, we have a belief in how to make the world better. We're not unbiased, but we do it explicitly and we let people know what it is. We're honest about it. Now, that uniquely defines a librarian, but all of this is predicated on one simple concept, and that is, what is knowledge? Well, knowledge is, first of all, uniquely human. It's what's in our brains. You can't write it down. You can't look at books. If you look at a book and say, that's knowledge, I dare you to have that book do anything with it. You can't just give it to a 2-year-old and suddenly they learn and understand. They have to read and comprehend, and that's making things living. It's knowledge, it's perception, it's how we act. It's uniquely human. It's constructed through conversation between a professor and a student and a student, or the student and themselves. As we do silent or quiet reading to ourselves, we're having a conversation. Do I believe this? Do I understand this? How does this relate to my world? Books, articles, images are artifacts of knowledge creation. They're not the knowledge themselves. When I write a book, when I wrote the atlas, that's not my knowledge. That is a byproduct of me thinking about this. And it may generate new knowledge, but in it of itself, it is not knowledge. And that librarians can now reach deep into knowledge creation, that we can be part of the thinking, the brainstorming, the production, the dissemination, all of these parts. So if we take this knowledge and we bring back those ideas of how we facilitate it, access is not simply to books and materials, it's to experts and conversations, as well as those artifacts. Knowledge is learning and training, not simply pointing and posting. That if we want to prepare people for this world, we have to have a class, we have to have a curriculum, we have to organize materials sequentially in many cases, not simply say, here's a pamphlet, here's a book, good luck. The environment needs to provide physical and intellectual safety, and we need to worry about why people want to get better. What are their dreams and aspirations? What do they want to be? Not simply what are they lacking or what's missing. So what isn't a library? If librarians are doing this and they're calling what they do a library, what doesn't count? So I've long contended that a room full of books is simply a closet, but that an empty room with a librarian in it is a library. That a library, the future of libraries is as a facilitated place of learning and making. It can be virtual, we can have online libraries, they can be physical libraries, they can have collections or not. But the facilitated word's important. That librarian is what makes a library, not simply that it's a collection of stuff. Now, this is often where people have issue. They say, what do you mean artifacts? You're talking about books and databases and documents as if they're unimportant. Or what do you mean optional? How can you have a library without collections and books and materials and such? Well, there are artifacts in that, once again, knowledge is in our heads, but we can't give our heads to other people. We have to create these artifacts. So they're of secondary importance to what we're trying to do, but very, very important. And optional, once again, if our goal is knowledge creation and we're facilitating it, these books, they're simply tools that we bring along to help us do that. So are the buildings and spaces. So are our scrolls. So are tablets before them. So are computers now. And so will be the next virtual reality or what have you. So it's not that these things are unimportant, but they're not central to what libraries do, which is facilitate knowledge creation. Librarians are. They're facilitating that space. And remember that the true collection of any library is its community. That it is ultimately the community that is the collection. So when we look at things like maker spaces in libraries, we can have little maker spaces and we can have optional systems. This is the collection. The collection is those people learning. And so this is the Fayetteville Free Library, and they give out this form. And this form asks, what are you passionate about, and are you willing to teach it? They long ago realized that when they had people coming to the library to volunteer and say, how can I help? Instead of simply saying, oh, this is how you can help a librarian do their job, they realized that it was the librarian's job to help the volunteer teach the rest of the community. And so through this form, they did things like have a group come in and say, well, I know how to sew and knit. And the librarians helped them prepare programs, bring people in, provide tools and technology where they could teach the rest of the community sewing and knitting. 3D printing and maker spaces, robotics, digital video production. All of this is the community as the collection, the knowledgeable about these areas, teaching the rest of the community to do these things. The idea here is, once again, is what makes this a library is that librarians are managing a collection. Yes, of books and materials, probably, but definitely of experts and people within the community that want to get better, that want to share what they know. That collection that we're truly focused on, that community out there, is much richer, more important, more valuable, and more central to the future of their own community than the books and materials we can bring. Look, our cultural heritage is alive and well and with us all the time. Simply saying it's in books or it's in materials or it's in these locked away institutions, that's the history and it's important. But focusing exclusively on the past and documents ignores the richest collection, which is our community. Our potential is in communities supported to dream and create that future. Libraries are the infrastructure of innovation. Librarians are the caretakers of the dreams and aspirations. The reason we have libraries as institutions is not simply to collect what has been, but to prepare what could be, to prepare our communities, our members, our scholars, our students, our bread makers, our businessmen, our representatives, our our politicians to make better decisions and to make the world better. That's our true job. And we'll bring whatever tools, books, materials, makerspaces, 3D printing, ourselves as the value to make that happen. I thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to having a discussion online about these topics. Thank you.